Hello everyone, my name is Nikolay and that's my first Ignite in an online format. So today I would like to do a short overview of how infrastructure code usually evolves from my perspective and which steps are on this way. I will provide examples for Terraform and Ansible, but I believe that this idea is universal and could be used with any tool. I will not describe in dozens of slides what is infrastructure as code and why it's crucial for you, but just in short, it allows you to do fast, stable, and repeatable changes. It improves team collaboration and knowledge sharing, and also it provides you documentation as code, so you don't have to write it much yourself manually. So, how usually evolution looks like from this picture? It starts from the very basic steps and never ends basically. And I believe that the infrastructure code growth should and could look like the same. So we should start with very basic steps and gradually improve it better and better. Unfortunately, sometimes it ends like this. So there are some basic steps and then everything became a very bad situation. Like different approaches are used for the same thing. Best practices are neglected. Linters are ignored. Code state in the repo are far away from the real state. Or even like this, when nothing even started. And everything is managed manually from the web console, from the SSH, and different teams prefer their way of doing things. Nothing is documented, so it's just one big pile of mess. And this is a very bad situation. So I draw this nice blue pyramid with the steps from the very bottom, like very basic ones on the bottom, and it's gradually next, and I will describe them in the next slides. So the first step, you should start using infrastructure as code tools. There are a lot of them for any use case you can imagine. And unfortunately, many companies still don't use them and manage manually. So there are tools like Terraform for infrastructure management and Ansible for provisioning. And you can choose your tools for your scenarios, but just please use them. And the next step, please check best practices. There are a lot of already written best practices for different tools, like Terraform best practices from Anton Babenko, Terraform best practices from HashiCorp, Ansible best practices. So please check them and use them, and don't reinvent the wheel, and don't do monsters. And the next step could look pretty obvious, but unfortunately there are still a lot of people who are using like infrastructure as code tools, but prefer to keep all the code on the one machine, for example, and don't use Git, and there is no versioning. Don't understand, it's possible to understand who is doing what and when. So please use Git. And the next thing is please use pull requests for changes or merge requests. I believe that this step is crucial before you can move next, because anything you will add next, like linters, testing, apply, everything will be very broken if you skip this and allow people to commit directly to the main branch. So next thing is you can add its linters in CI. It's a pretty easy step, and it will allow you to keep the code quality consistent, and formatting is the same. There will no fighting against tabs versus spaces, what amount of spaces to ident things, and there are linters for different tools already written. And the next thing as well is pretty easy. You can add validation in CI. So for example, Terraform validate allows you to check that code is valid from the Terraform point of view, that all the variables, modules you are trying to use, they are reachable and everything is matching correctly. and the same thing are available for other tools. And next thing you can add, it's pre-commit webhooks. Pre-commit hooks allow you to check your code even before you commit them to the Git. And pre-commit framework is pretty much a really good thing, and you can build your own thing on that, like pre-commit Terraform from Anton Babenko, pre-commit for Ansible, etc. And the next thing you can add is testing. You can test your code that it's like stable and it's repeatable, it's doing what you're expecting. And there are tools for Ansible and Terraform like Molecular, TerraTest, and if you have something pretty complicated and don't have much test environment, please use them. And the next step is apply from CI. You can, in theory, skip testing before this step, but in this case, you will test your code on your production. And you can use and apply infrastructure as code tools from any CI, but you have to write them manually or use already written tools. So it looks pretty simple and obvious, but I believe that it's impossible, for example, to do good testing if you don't have any like good linters and formatting checking, because you will test like already a mess and yeah. And a couple of more things I could add, that you could and you should definitely use modern editor for your code editing, like VS Code, like IDEA, Sublime, etc. There are a lot of good plugins for different tools. You should definitely fix versions of tools for stable results and repeatable results. You could write your own linters if you want to. And the next thing, and I haven't seen any like good real world usage of that, but it's pretty much hype team now that you could do security scan of your code in CI with tools like Checkov, Terrascan, TFSec, and you can check, like for example, that no one is creating security group too wide open, etc. And the recent thing I started using, it's a Super-Linter from GitHub. It's a all-in-one linter. It has any linter you can imagine. You can run as a GitHub action in other CI in Docker. And I think it's covered about 60% of what I described before. So you can linter everything with one tool. So thank you, everyone. And so the thing is pretty simple. Start from the basic steps and gradually improve your code. And don't jump for just using the tool to the very end. And I believe that everything will be good in this case.